This is CBC Vancouver News.
Another wildfire flare-up, this time a couple hours west of Lillooet. A few hundred properties are under evacuation order, with fire officials calling it a critical situation. Plus,
my daughter was a good spirit.
A mother grieves a daughter in Prince George as the city sets a record for deadly crimes, sparking concern about public safety in the community. And
they were Black pioneers, but they tend not to get a lot of notice because they didn't write the history books.
BC marks Emancipation Day, reflecting on the past and highlighting the need for more change in the future. Good evening, I'm Tanya Fletcher. We begin tonight with more developing news on the wildfire front. A fire has triggered evacuations in a rural mountainous area of the Sea to Sky country. About 200 properties, largely recreational cabins, are under evacuation order tonight. This is around Gun and Lajoie Lakes, a few hours north of Pemberton and a few hours west of Lillooet. The Squamish-Lillooet Regional District calls the current situation critical and says anyone in this affected area must leave immediately. There's an evacuation alert for some areas as well. Mounties are said to be on hand, helping to expedite these evacuations. Evacuees are being urged to head to Lillooet or Whistler. We did speak with the owner of a motel just this hour who's in the area, and he saw how the fire came to be out of control.
It was almost like it wasn't happening because the fire had started on the kind of the south or the west side of Penrose along Doughton Lake. And then they battled it, and they couldn't stop it. It's such steep terrain that no crews could get in there on foot.
The BC Wildfire Service says this fire has been burning for more than 2 weeks, but it's tripled in size since yesterday alone. Evacuees who need a place to stay can go to emergency centers set up at the District Rec Center in Lillooet or the Delta Hotel in Whistler. We will keep you up to date on this story as it develops. Meanwhile, in Osoyoos, people are banding together to support firefighters as they try to contain that dangerous wildfire there. The Eagle Bluff blaze has been burning for 4 days and now covers more than 30 square kilometers. Zara Premji is hearing from those who stepped up to help their community.
It's just truly amazing to see everybody come together. It's incredible.
When these friends realized their store was in the Eagle Bluff Fire's evacuation order zone, they decided to join forces with other shop owners and community members to put their skills and supplies to work.
We figured, well, what do we do best, which is feed lots of people, so we decided to kind of jump on the bandwagon with Junction 3 and start offering some meals and drinks and things like that, and it kind of just escalated from there. Each business started throwing in money and joining.
All to support first responders. It's one way many people here say they found peace and purpose in the midst of the fear.
We helped them, we turned on all our lights so they could see, and then we showed them around and showed them where we watered and stuff so they could start setting up their.
Mariah Andres and her family watched the fire hop the U.S.-Canada border and quickly inch closer to their home.
I've lived in my house for 12, 13 years now, never at once had a wildfire over here. It's definitely very new and scary for us.
So she knew she needed to help.
And we actually came into our backyard and started watering the ground to try and get it ready because it was a grass fire, so it was moving really fast.
And community members say the help won't stop. So far, more than $7,000 has been raised to bring more food and supplies to first responders.
We're kind of just all working together and back and forth, and the community's dropping off Gatorades and muffins and cakes, and it's fantastic. Can't ask for anything better.
The wind has helped the fire, and 1,600 properties have been taken off the evacuation alert. But the fire has more than doubled in size since Monday. Just under 1,000 properties remain on an evacuation alert, and 191 are still on an evacuation order. Zara Premji, CBC News, Osoyoos.
And we're getting a look at just one of the international crews assisting Canada this wildfire season. A team from Costa Rica has been deployed to the Burns Lake area. This video, shared by BC Wildfire, shows the crew undergoing initial training. The service says it's crucial to give international crews orientation as they begin work on the fires so that they can stay safe in unfamiliar conditions. They'll be fighting a series of fires, mainly in the Bulkley-Nechako region. Well, meanwhile, in the Cranbrook area, a positive turn of events. The St. Mary's River fire, which has destroyed more than a half-dozen homes in the Ackham community, is now considered being held. That means officials don't expect the flames to grow any further, but they warn it will continue to generate smoke until it's fully extinguished. Well, get ready to put down your garden hose and let your grass turn brown. Watering restrictions will come into effect across Metro Vancouver this Friday. Stage 2 means watering is banned for residential and non-residential lawns. You can't fill up pools, hot tubs, or water features either, like fountains. And you're not allowed to wash driveways or sidewalks except for exceptional circumstances. Trees, shrubs, and flowers can be watered by hand or sprinkler between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. Vegetable gardens are also free from any restrictions. Well, personal information of many BC healthcare workers may have been stolen during a cyber attack. The Health Employees Association of BC says the affected server contained the data of staff and job applicants. The stolen information could include social insurance numbers, contact information, and details from passports and driver's licenses.
While HEABC has not identified any misuse of the information arising from this incident, as a precautionary measure, we are notifying individuals as appropriate and offering 2 years of service with Equifax, an international credit monitoring and identity protection firm.
The association says it learned of the cyber attack on July 13th. It says the data breach does not affect personal health records. Well, Prince George has set a new record for deadly crimes after 2 homicides in the city last month alone. One victim is a young Indigenous mother with 2 small children. As Michelle Gassoub reports, her death has devastated the family and raised questions about public safety in the community. And a warning, this story includes details that are disturbing.
Great mother, great daughter, great granddaughter.
Leslie Thomas remembers her 22-year-old daughter Isabel, a mother of 2 who worked as a dietary aide at a senior home and was loved by the elders there. She had a talent for making ribbon skirts, was learning drum making, and saving up to buy this house, the home she loved, and the place where she was killed on July 18th during a targeted home invasion.
Oh, it's hard. My 6-year-old granddaughter was in the room as both of her kids were in the room when this happened. And my granddaughter needs all the help that she can get.
Isabel Thomas's death was the 8th confirmed homicide in Prince George since January, the most ever recorded in a single year, one more than the previous high set in 2010, when Maclean's magazine first labeled Prince George the most dangerous city in Canada. RCMP said Thomas's case was targeted, but she had no connection to criminal activity. They said a majority of homicides in the city are linked to gang activity that has spread north.
Prince George is a hub for the north for a lot of things, and that includes the drug trade as well. So it is lucrative to control drug trafficking through this corridor up into the Yukon and the rest of the northern part of the province.
RCMP say there is no ongoing risk to the public. One person has been arrested in Thomas's case, but no charges have been announced. She leaves behind 2 girls, a 6-year-old and a 6-month-old. Leslie Thomas is now looking to secure grief and trauma counseling for the oldest,
who lost her dad a year and a half ago too. So my daughter had her in counseling for him, and then now my daughter is gone and she's not taking it very well.
Thomas says with few resources available to her in Prince George, the children may need to travel to a different city for help. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
In other news today, a record-breaking month for Central Okanagan Search and Rescue. In July, the volunteer team was called out 18 times to help people for a wide range of calls.
Yeah, so we've done everything from fire evacuations to searching for missing people, medical assist and medical evacuations, to looking for people with who've wandered away with dementia.
Most of these requests were in the Central Okanagan, but search and rescue crews were called to Vernon and Rock Creek as well. Their advice to help avoid dangerous situations: be prepared and know where you're going. An update to a story we told you about last week. A 111-year-old schoolhouse in Kitsilano is on the move tonight. The Hudson Elementary building was loaded onto a trailer about an hour ago. It's now being rolled along Cornwall Avenue to Kitsilano Beach. This will take hours tonight. From there, it'll be loaded onto a barge and then shipped across the water to Squamish Nation on the North Shore. There, it'll be used as a school. Community members rallied earlier this year to save the school from demolition. It is Emancipation Day, the day slaves were freed by the British Empire, both in Canada and around the world. Here in BC, the day was marked by the provincial and federal governments. But despite the recognition, some say we need to do a lot more to teach its history here in the province. Philip O'Wara has that story.
That's my grandmother and my father.
Christine Best and her partner Guy Hayward are on a quest to educate. Their families have played a significant part in shaping both Canadian and BC history, but they say their stories are not widely known.
My family's been in Canada since 1787, I think it was, when they were part of a group of Africans who were given a grant of land in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. And my grandmother's great-great-grandparents, I think, were part of that.
It was during that time, in the late 1700s, that Guy Hayward's family established a bank that made its money through the slave trade.
These are the guys that founded North Vancouver. They became very wealthy in the slave trade. And throughout the 1700s, two brothers, Arthur and Benjamin Haywood, ranked number 5 and number 8, I think, on the all-time 10 most prolific slavers.
Haywood's family moved to BC and established the settlement that became North Vancouver. Many of the North Shore's streets, parks and businesses are named after his relatives.
There's Haywood Park and Haywood Street. Lonsdale is named after Lonsdale Estate, which is the Haywood family company that foreclosed on the Moodaville sawmill and took over all the lands that came with the sawmill.
Best's grandmother Carrie was a prominent black Nova Scotia journalist, and father James Calvert, a respected Canadian Union leader and diplomat. Unlike her partner's family, whose names have been immortalized in North Vancouver, she says the black people who contributed so much to BC's history and development have had their stories ignored.
But if you look back in history, not just in British Columbia, but in Western Canada, there were black farmers, there were black settlers, there were black pioneers, but they tend not to get a lot of notice because they didn't write the history books.
A sentiment shared by some of BC's black scholars and academics.
We know that black people were in Vancouver. We know that some came up from the south, some came across as the railway workers because black men could only find work on the railway. There was no place to live. Vancouver was a segregated society, a segregated city, and so black people formed a community here.
Francis says for Emancipation Day, officials need to do a better job in BC in commemorating the day and creating greater awareness on BC's black history. Best and Haywood say the least people can do right now is educate themselves. Philip O'Wara, CBC News, Vancouver.
And take a look at this family out for a walk. 5 cougars were spotted near Powell River by wildlife enthusiast Wayne Obermeyer. The predator cats are known to be solitary animals. This pack is believed to be made up of a mother and her 4 kittens. WildSafe BC says cougars can have anywhere from 1 to 6 kittens that'll stay with their mother until they're about 1.5 years old. Well, here's a quick quiz. What do keys, phones, camping equipment, a suitcase full of firewood, and a cement mixer have in common? Well, if you're an Evo driver, there's a good chance you may have left at least some of those items in your rental. The popular car-sharing app is looking to reunite drivers now with some of their lost possessions. They gave us a tour of their lost and found.
My name's Dave Wharf. I'm the Senior Manager of Business Operations here at Evo CarShare.
Welcome to Evo. Use the app to report any cleanliness issues or damage.
I'm going to show you where all the things that we find in Evos every day end up before we can reunite them with the owners. It ends up here. So this is our storage unit where we keep all of the items that we found. We've got things like a TV remote, religious artifacts, backpacks, full backpacks, lots of shoes. This is a drum, drumsticks, tons and tons of glasses, sunglasses, drawer of keys. Most of these, unfortunately, will not probably get linked back up with somebody. An empty tank of helium for balloons. They may not be coming back for this. Full speaker system, slow cooker and a roasting pan, an electric skateboard, genie head. And in one case, we found almost what looked like somebody had moved house, like all of their stuff, including a mattress on top of the vehicle. So really take a look at your surroundings before you end your trip. Make sure that you've got all of your possessions. If you do end your trip and you realize that something is in here and the trip has ended, try to rebook the trip. Let us know. We're happy to credit you for that. We don't want any more keys. We'd love to give them back to everybody.
Thanks for riding with Evo. If you are ending your trip, double check that all doors lock before you leave.
Conspiring to disenfranchise voters and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
Charges of conspiracy and obstruction. We look into Donald Trump's third indictment after the break. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. 9 banana trees are blooming simultaneously in a rare occurrence. This is happening inside a greenhouse at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon. It features 4 banana varieties, including the 40-year-old dwarf Cavendish. Take a look.
It's a tree not many people will have seen in North America, and there are 10 of them growing inside a greenhouse at the University of Saskatchewan. 9 of them are bearing fruit, something considered unusual by experts.
Bananas in Canada, it's always very rare because, this is a tropical plant.
There's not just one type of banana, but 4 different varieties blossoming at the greenhouse. The oldest one is known as dwarf Cavendish, brought in by Nair 40 years ago. There's also the dwarf Robusta, the common plantain, and the not-so-common Kanan.
Robusta is similar to Cavendish, but tastes slightly different. It's a little more sweeter, and the fruit, when it ripens, is much more softer.
Cavendish bananas are typically what you'd find in your grocery stores. They make up about 47% of global production, according to the United Nations. Growing these bananas isn't a quick process. It takes about a year for a tree to grow and produce these fruits in a greenhouse, assuming you have the right light and water. But typically, they don't all bloom at the same time. Nair says it could be climate change, but he can't be sure.
Scientists will say something is not correct because the weather and the changes that is happening is influencing what is happening to the plant system.
Bananas are predominantly produced in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. According to the United Nations, the biggest producers are India and China. Nair says it feels amazing to bring students in and show them what these tropical plants really look like.
Karen has got PhD students that come from all over the world, and many of them doesn't know what a banana tree looks like or most of the stuff that they are accustomed to eat.
Bananas aren't the only tropical plants in the greenhouse. There's also papayas, turmeric, sugarcane, and chamba, which I tried to eat.
It's not going to be very sweet yet.
Still pretty good though.
Nair says on almost each tree, one group of bananas opens up like a flower every day. Some of the bananas will begin to ripen over the next 4 to 6 weeks. Then it's time to harvest and enjoy the fruits of his labor. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Welcome back. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is facing new charges tonight, and they may be the most serious yet. This time, it's for his efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. It's his third indictment, and it centers on the January 6th insurrection. As Katie Simpson explains, federal prosecutors claim Trump's efforts to hang on to power after being defeated were criminal.
The pursuit of accountability for one of America's darkest moments, reaching its most critical point yet. The former president now indicted for his alleged role in historic efforts to interrupt the peaceful transfer of power. Special counsel Jack Smith revealing the specific allegations in what has become the U.S. Department of Justice's largest investigation ever.
Charging Donald J. Trump with conspiring to defraud the United States, conspiring to disenfranchise voters, and conspiring and attempting to obstruct an official proceeding.
The indictment details how Trump allegedly worked with 6 unnamed co-conspirators to cling to power, relying on pervasive and destabilizing lies about election fraud in an effort to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims.
Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election.
All of it culminating in the storming of the Capitol building.
As described in the indictment, it was fueled by lies. Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
In a statement, the Trump campaign said the charges are reminiscent of Nazi Germany in the 1930s, the former Soviet Union, and other authoritarian and dictatorial regimes. The former president has long denied wrongdoing, alleging any and all criminal charges are politically motivated.
This is prosecutorial misconduct, and its primary purpose is to steal another election.
Trump is already facing dozens of charges in New York related to alleged hush money payments to an adult film star, and in Florida over allegations of how he handled classified documents after leaving office. It's also very possible Trump could be indicted a 4th time in Georgia for alleged election interference there. Speculation about charges forcing local officials to ramp up security.
Well, here's a nice shot. This is the first of 2 supermoons this month. Weather-wise, we'll see how the rest of this week's forecast is shaping up. That's coming up next. Stay with us.
You know how old I am.
I wouldn't ask such an indiscreet question.
It's never too late to catch up with an old friend. Just 2 months shy of her 100th birthday, Jay Edwards is taking a stroll down memory lane. She used to ride sky high in Spitfires like this during World War II. The memories of blue skies and open air suddenly start to take flight.
It's unimaginable, really. I never thought I would get this close again.
Like the planes that line this runway at the Abbotsford Air Show, Edwards is a bit of a legend. She's one of just 168 women who flew planes during the Second World War. At the time, women weren't allowed to fly in combat. Instead, they served under Britain's Air Transport Auxiliary, picking up warplanes at factories and airports and flying them to the front line. They famously became known as the Atta Girls. The pilots even campaigned for equal pay to their male counterparts.
When I first started in ATA, women had worked to get equal pay for equal work. And by the time I got in 43, she had achieved it.
Edwards is one of 3 surviving female pilots from the war and has become widely recognized for her service. Today, she was invited to get up close to this restored Spitfire, which was flown all the way from Ontario by renowned pilot Dave Hadfield, whose brother happens to be the famed astronaut Chris Hadfield.
This is a Mark 9 Spitfire. It's the real thing. It was built at the end of World War II in about February of 1945 and served with an RAF squadron for about a year. I've been learning a few things, I can say that.
One of the first women to take flight, Edwards still doesn't consider herself a pioneer. Trailblazer or not, the humble pilot still draws quite the crowd.
They inspired other women. They inspired them through a long period of time and laid the foundation for the number of female pilots working in commercial aviation today.
It's great to see my mother being recognized for her effort during the Second World War.
Edwards will be taking flight once again. Her story has led to an invitation to a special event at the Canadian Air and Space Museum in Ottawa. She has agreed to be a guest of honor at the premiere of a new documentary on Spitfires. John Hernandez, CBC News, Abbotsford.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC Vancouver is proud to be the exclusive media partner of the 8th Annual Monsoon Festival of the Performing Arts, celebrating South Asian art, music, dance workshops, and performances. And who will win the search for BC's Best Lake? Voting continues this week with the winner announced August 4th. Sign up to win the ultimate CBC prize pack at cbc.ca/bestlakebc.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
And Darius Madavi joins us now with a look at the forecast. And Darius, are we continuing on that still positive trend when it comes to the wildfires?
Depends where we're looking. In the north, we have improved a bit compared to yesterday. In the central parts of the province, gotten a little bit worse. But really the takeaway here is that the fire danger hasn't budged much over the last 24 hours. And it looks like that is set to continue. If we look, we have pretty much the same weather patterns as we did yesterday. We have this low that's moved out of Alberta, but still has a long trough that is reaching the interior parts, the northern interior parts of the province, reaching all the way out to the coast as well. The north coast also expected to see some more showers tomorrow because this system, even as it weakens and moves further away, still that trough of low pressure causing instability throughout the northern and central interior. So if we do take a look, you can see a lot of the precipitation buildup over the next 24 hours is focused in those areas. Meanwhile, the southern interior over to the lower mainland, still staying completely dry because of that ridge of high pressure over those areas, keeping temperatures high and keeping conditions sunny. Still, though, plenty of rain for the north. So tomorrow, when we look at the fire danger, we shouldn't expect it to go up for the central parts of the province. Hopefully, it'll come back down to where we saw it a couple days ago, provided those showers do pan out and do provide enough rain to really soak some of those fuels sitting on the forest floor. If we look at our forecast for tomorrow, we can see the effects of that satellite analysis that we looked at. Rain for the northern parts of the province, hopefully, are potentially petering out tomorrow in places like Bella Coola and Terrace. Meanwhile, completely sunny in the south. A few clouds for Vancouver tomorrow morning, probably until noon. And then in the afternoon, those clouds are going to clear out, leaving us with a really sunny day tomorrow. That pattern holds through most of the week, plenty of sun. And then the weekend, maybe a few clouds on Saturday, but really it's going to be a very clear rest of the week.
All right, pretty standard July, I guess now August forecast. Thanks so much, Darius.
No problem.
And that is your late news for this Tuesday. For news anytime, you can head to our website. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.